This conference will now be recorded.
Good day to you all. Today on this video we are going to learn how to add or how to go ahead and have the connection established with a storage server, which means connecting a LUN with a ESXi box. So let's say that in VMware there is a concept called vSphere. Most of us are thinking that VMware is a technology, but actually speaking, VMware is basically a company who goes ahead and provides a different product lines. And I can say one of the product line is vSphere. In vSphere, we could see something like how a data center virtualization can be done. Let's go and understand pretty much about it down the line. Prior to it, I would like to go and give you an example or give you a clear idea as in like how to go and extend the data store of the ESXi box. It could be a kind of a rocket science when you hear for the first time, but if you go and understand it much better, you will be able to get a clear idea about it. Let us say that I have a CPU, and this CPU, when I say it's a CPU, what are the components which will be there inside it? I can say the components which will be there on these boxes will be SMPS, motherboard, processor, RAM, and hard disk. Now, the box cannot be accessed or this CPU cannot be used unless until you have an operating system in it. It is considered to be a kind of a dummy box. Instead, if I go over and say that I would like to have the product line of VMware, that is from the company called Vmware, and the product line is nothing but vSphere. In vSphere, for data center virtualization, they are giving a product that's called as ESXi. So the ESXi is nothing but what in the sense? It's a built-in product of OS plus hypervisor from the company VMware. Now, assume that we have a CPU that's nothing but a box with a motherboard, processor, RAM, and hard drive. Now, we want to go ahead and use this box effectively. To use this box effectively, we are going ahead and installing a product which is called as ESXi from the company called VMware. Now, the ESXi is, as I was telling in the beginning, it is a product from vSphere, and this product allows you to go ahead and create virtual machines. Now, where does these virtual machine get stored, or where it goes ahead and resides in this box? If you go ahead and see, the hard drive is nothing but a kind of a raw space. Probably I can go ahead and say it's a raw space, and in this space the ESXi is going to take nearly 7.5 GB of disk space, and the rest of the space what you see here will be converted as what in the sense as data store, which means the remaining space. I could say as the ESXi box has a Linux operating system in it, it will go ahead and use the file system called, that's the Linux file system, general file system. I can say it has nothing but ext2 or ext3 or ext4 like that. On this, as I was telling in the beginning, it's going to take 7.5 GB of space to install the ESXi product alone. Now, the balance left out space, I can say, after the 7.5 GB, assume that the disk space is nearly around 40 GB of space. The disk what you have holds a space of nearly 40 GB. So that's what the one which we will be seeing down the line. Okay, so I say the 40 GB would be the disk space like that. Assume it has a 40 GB of space. Now, when I say it has a 40 GB of space, the entire hard drive size is 40 GB, on which 7.5 GB will be taken by the ESXi, which is nothing but an OS plus a hypervisor from the company called VMware under the product line called vSphere. Now, the left out space after the 40 GB, I would say nearly 32.5 GB, will be taken or will be considered as data store. So the one which you see is data store. We can go and do a deep dive on this down the line to understand like how does it exactly works, what is a data store, how does it work. But to start with, I'm just going to go and give you a quick idea about that. Assume that you have installed a ESXi on a box. ESXi is nothing but a product line of vSphere, as I said. I'm creating a virtual machine. Maybe you will think that creating a virtual machine is so simple, just like that you'll go and create, but there are certain fundamental things which happens behind the screen. I create a VM, and the VM is going to go and basically reside where, in the sense, inside this data store, which I'm going to show you down the line. Okay, let's say that I created a VM, and because I created a VM, a container got created inside the data store. Now let me go ahead and take a ESXi box, and then I'll show you how does it work. And prior to showing that, I would like to show you what IP as I've set for this. The IP which I've set it up for this particular box is nothing but 10.0.55.1. As you know, or on the previous video, we just discussed about how to install the ESXi and how to set up an IP for it. Now, assume that we have gone ahead and set it up IP, and then we are going ahead and managing this box. There is no way you could go ahead and directly interact to this box and say that I want to create a virtual machine. Why? Whenever you try to create a virtual machine on this box, it basically goes ahead and has a connectivity. How? This box is being connected with a physical switch. Could be a router or it could be a hub even, but I don't want to go and talk about how because hub is kind of like a discontinued device or a pretty old device, I would say. Now in this box there is a network card which we call as NIC, and where there is where we have set up this IP. Now this box is connected with a switch, I said, and the switch is connected with a computer, like the way I'm talking about my laptop. See, I'm just trying to access it from my laptop, and my laptop has an operating system of something like Windows 8 operating system. I can say Windows 8 is what I have, Windows 8, and it has an IP of 10.0.0.200. 200. This is the IP which I've given for this box now. Now let me make it in the center. Perfect. Now this laptop is connected on the same switch as I was telling before. Now through this box, I'm going to access this ESXi, that is from this system. So as I would like to show you here, take a look of it. I can say Vmware, Windows 8 is the operating system which I have installed here, and I would like to show you the IP as well. IP config. I have an IP of 10.200. So in this box, you could see that there is an Ethernet adapter, and through the Ethernet adapter, I have connected with the switch. That's what I was meaning before. Now, using this box, I'm going in and accessing this ESXi. So how? I'm basically go ahead and try to ping with this guy just to check whether the connection is established. So I'm going to go ahead and take the command prompt, and I'm saying, what is your IP? I'm just trying to see the IP of this IP config, and it has IP of 10.200. Now I'm going to say ping 10.0.55.1. When I say 55.1, of course the ESXi box is talking to it, because as I said in the beginning, both of them are connected in the same switch. That's the reason he is able to get the reply. Now after installing the ESXi on the box, the very first thing what I'll be doing in the sense, I'm going to use the vSphere client. Here is a vSphere client. I'm going to put the IP of 55.1, and I'm going to provide the username. Now I'm going in and basically connecting with the ESXi box. Here we go. We have the ESXi box which is going to appear in the screen. So the screen what you see right now is what we call as the classic view of our ESXi box. What do you mean by classic view? Nowadays we started getting the web view of it. which means you don't need to install any application like the way we install something called vSphere client. Instead, you can use the browser and then you can access it. Now, what happens if I try the same browser, okay, for this particular box, that is for this version, I will not get that. It will prompt me to go and install the ESXi, which means https://10.0.55.1 is what I'm giving. It says the page is secure. Of course, I know that. Go ahead and process. When I say process, it says that I have to download the vSphere client to manage. So when I download the vSphere client, I get a small ESXi application that is nothing but the exe executable file. Post installation of it, I get something like this, a vSphere client. Now I don't want to go with the concept of telling how does it work, but if I'm using a recent version of 6.5 or 6.7, I get the access to go ahead and directly approach the ESXi box from the browser itself. As you see, through the browser itself, I'll be able to go ahead and manage the box, which we will be able to see, or we'll be seeing it down the line. As of now, as we were talking about, I want to go ahead and show you this box is a raw box. There are no VMs in it, and it is in the trial period. We could find it says that the evaluation 60 days remaining like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and say I want to create a VM by right clicking on this, and I'm saying new virtual machine, and I would like to go and give a name to this, which is nothing but test. We are creating a VM with a name called test like that. So the data store, what you see here, as of now, as I said, 40 GB is the data store, which is the hard disk which we have given for this particular ESXi box, out of which 7.5 has been taken by him, and the available space is 32.5. So it says the data store capacity is 32.5. However, I would like to take nearly 1 GB of space from the data store, which is 972 MB, which is called as provision, which I've taken. So the available space for me to create a virtual machine is only 31.55 GB of disk like that. There are some file systems also that's called as VMFS5, VMFS3, VMFS6 like that. We are not going in and dealing with that right now because it is a big story which I have to explain again. It may take even a couple of hours to understand. Now, ultimately, we will try understanding how can I have multiple data store for this particular ESXi box, which is nothing but the vSphere's hypervisor box. So I says next to it, and I'm going ahead and saying hardware version 8. That's perfectly all right. I'm saying other. I don't know what operating system I'm going to install. So I'm saying basically I'm going to install other operating system. It's a 32-bit operating system, and I'm going with a single core CPU with a 512 MB of memory, and one NIC NIT card is enough for me. And I'm going ahead and saying the hard drive controller can be LSI logical parallel. I'm saying next to it. Create a new virtual disk for it. Of course, I'm creating a VM and I want to have a hard disk for it. I says next to this, and I'm saying thin provisioning. See, if I have to say about the thin provisioning, thick provisioning concept, and it would take some time, which we saw on the previous class or on the previous video, I would say. Now I'm going ahead and saying finish. Now I'm not trying to explain you all the features here because I just want to ultimately bring in a virtual machine and show you. Now we have created a virtual machine called with the name called test VM. Now I have the option of going in and right clicking and powering it on, and then I can say open console, and I could find there's no operating system in it, and it's trying to get an operating system from the DHCP, and it says no operating system found. Why? Operating system is not found because we haven't installed any operating system. It's just a brand new virtual machine without an operating system. I can decide what operating system I want. I can put a CD and I can install it, or if I have an operating system in my floppy and I can go and put it here and then install it, or I have a pen drive where I have a bootable operating system, I can go and put it and then install it. I'm not trying to do that. Basically, I'm just trying to show you what happens when you create a VM. Whenever we create a VM, as you know, that this VM, I'm going to power it off as well, okay, so that we will have a good control on it. I've created a virtual machine. Because I created a virtual machine, the virtual machine got placed inside the data store, the name called test VM, like that. You can see it, right? So there are some configuration files which needs to be there to run the virtual machine. So all those informations are here. Now let me go ahead and show you quickly that how could I go ahead and have another data store, which is the storing area of virtual machines. You know, this particular box has the limit of nearly 4096 VMs can be created in it. However, we have created only one. So how many more I can create? Nearly 4095 virtual machines can be created. But there's a catch in it. Where would I go for the space? Because every single time when you create a VM, you said that it will go and create a container inside the data store. But the data store has a space of nearly 31.55. Now, if I'm creating more VMs, will this data store be able to give space to me? Is the question. It has only 32.5 GB, right? How could I go and add more space to my ESXi box? So simple. Just take a look of this, which I was showing you. The ESXi box is connected on a switch with a NIC, and the Windows machine which I'm using right now is connected with it. With the help of this Windows machine, I'm going here and approaching this guy. Now, what if I am going here and connecting a storage server? What is a storage server? Nothing. It's a simple concept I would like to tell you here. A storage server is again the same. It's also a CPU where you will have the same component like SMPS will be there, motherboard will be there, processor will be there, RAM will be there, hard drive will be there, hard drive will be there, hard drive, hard drive, hard drive. What is a storage server? The storage server will have lots of storage places, which means I can say lots of hard drives. That's a storage server. So if I say ESXi is what we have here, what will be there inside this box? A simple concept I can say. In this, you will have an operating system as well. If someone says no, there is no operating system in it, you have to laugh at them, because there will be an operating system, as I was telling, an operating system. Plus what you will have, there will be a storage server application, which we will call it as, in general, I would like to go ahead and say it as LVM, Logical Volume Manager. What it does, basically the Logical Volume Manager helps you to create, which means it aggregates all the disk into a single volume, and from that you can go ahead and create multiple small volumes, which are so called as the LVM, Logical Volume Manager. With the application, you can create multiple small volumes, which they are called as LUNs, logical unit number, for each of the storage. Now, assume that each of them are nearly around 10 GB. I can say this guy is 10 GB, and this is 10, and this is 10, and this is 10, and this is 10. I have nearly 5 hard drives connected, which are all of 10 GB in size. Each of them are in 10 GB in size. Now, what is the total volume you have? You have 50 GB. So the operating system plus the LVM concept, or it goes ahead and thinks that all these things are put together and we have it as a single volume, which is called as 50 GB. It thinks I have a space of 50 GB. Now the LVM allows you to go ahead and create multiple virtual volumes, which are, you know, something like you can go and create for 12 GB, and you can go and create it for 8 GB. You can go and create it for 8 GB, and then you can go and create it something like, I want to create 14 GB. Like that, I can go and create multiple volumes with the help of this. Sorry. Now, each of these are called as LUNs. They called as LUNs. So, an example I can say how a LUN looks like. Maybe I can go ahead and say this is how it will be. This is one of my LUN. Assume that I've created a LUN out of this 50 GB, and the size of it is nearly around 20 GB. Like that. 20 GB is the size of it. Now I want to go ahead and give this 20 GB to my ESXi box to store the VMs, which means I'm going in and increasing the size of the data store, not increasing on the same. I'm going to have another data store with 20 GB. How can I bring it, and how can I go and have the VMs created inside it? The concept is so simple. Select the host. You have selected, right? Go to the configuration parameter. When you go to the configuration parameters, on the left hand side underneath the hardware, you have something called storage adapter. In the storage adapter, there is an option to go and add the iSCSI adapter. What is iSCSI? iSCSI is basically a protocol which is used to deliver storage over IP. So if this box has to go ahead and deliver the storage, that is a LUN, over the IP, through the IP, then it has to use a protocol called iSCSI. Because this guy has the storage, we call this guy as target. And he is the target. And who is he? He is the requester. He requests basically. So we call it as initiator, like that. We call it as I initiator. He initiates the volume. From where? From here. Now, what is the IP which has been given to the storage server? The IP for this guy is 10.0.0.100. Now let's go ahead and see whether this box is able to ping. How? I'm just going to go ahead and say cmd ping 10.100. Of course, my storage server is also replying to me. So I'm going ahead and saying now, here I said that I have to add the storage adapter. On the storage adapter, I have to right click and click on the properties. And I'm going to go ahead and say on the tab called dynamic discovery, and I'm going to add my storage server. I'm going to basically say that I'm going to add my storage server. So to add the storage server, the first thing what am I supposed to do is, since I should know the storage server's IP, right? I know the storage server IP. What is IP? 10.0.0.100. And I say the default port number for this process is 3260, which has been mentioned here, right? So I say okay to it. Now it has added the IP and I'm saying close. Now it is asking me, should I go ahead and scan and see how many LUNs are there, which means how many storage, volumes are there in this box. Yes, I'm saying yeah, go ahead. It will say the target is 1 because we have only one storage server which is connected, right? So that's 1. There are 2 LUNs, which means 2 logical volumes which are there inside this box, like the way you see here. One is for nearly around 20 GB, another one is for nearly around 19 GB something, nearing 20. I can say nearing 20 GB, 19.93, like that. That's the space I have. Okay, these are just an example which I gave you. Don't get confused with it. So I'm going here and saying yes. So it will say there are 2 LUNs, and to reach those 2 LUNs, I have 2 different paths which are available. Like that. So I'm going here and saying yeah, correct. What you said is right. Now after this, I have to go ahead and click on the option called storage, and on the storage, I'm going to say add storage. It is asking, is it a disk or a LUN? I'm saying it's a LUN, and I say next to it. When I say next, there are a couple of LUNs which are available, as I was telling. One is 19.94, another one is 20.03, like that. I would like to use the first one, which is the LUN 0, and I'm saying next. And it is asking me, you want to format the LUN in VMFS 3 or 5? These are the proprietary file systems of VMware. I'm saying I would like to format it with VMFS 5, and I says next to it, and I says finish. It's asking for an IP, okay, or a name. What should I have? Maybe I would say it is taken from a storage server, so I would say storage server. Storage server has given a LUN to me, like that. How much space you want to use? I want to utilize the complete 20 GB from it, and I says next. It says I'm going to format this in VMFS file system 5, and then I'm going to go ahead and have the block size as 1 MB, and a single file can be up to 2 TB, like that. I'm saying okay, formatted. Now you will find another data store coming up with a name called storage server. I can rename this as well. As you know, I can go ahead and rename this as well by telling I want to rename the, in a different way. Instead of being data store, I can go ahead and say personal storage or something like that. Wow, you could see that my LUN started appearing here. The LUN which I had from a storage server is here right now. Now, if I go ahead and see, I could see two storages. I can go ahead and create a new virtual machine, and I can go ahead and say custom, and I can say check VM like that. You see there are two data stores which are available for me. Earlier we had only one, now we have two. I'm selecting the second one and I'm saying next. Same strategy is what I'm following, other 32-bit. And I'm going ahead and saying with the same create new virtual machine, thin provisioning, or I can go ahead and say even thick provisioning, lazy 0. I'm going ahead and saying 1 GB, saying next, finish. Now VM got created with the name called check VM. Where is this VM residing right now? The VM is there inside the ESXi box. However, the container of the VM is being put inside the storage server. I can right click and say browse data store, and I could find the container here as well. Now another VM which we had was residing in this place called data store. Here is it. If I open, I could find the files. You may think why there is a difference in files. Here we have 6 files, and here we have less number of files, 4 number of files like that. Doesn't matter. Okay, when you power it on, the number of files will increase to 6. We powered it, we powered on the old VM and then powered it off. That's why. Now I have just powered it on and then I powered it back off. Now I could go ahead and find this VM. Check VM will also have 6 files. You could see it, right? So it's a big story, and I have to go ahead and tell you how many files will get created, what are those files, and what is the use of it like that. But just to give you a quick idea about like how to add a storage LUN to a ESXi box. So that's what we saw today, and it's just a class, or maybe I would say a short training to give you an idea about like how to add a storage to it. For more videos, you can get in touch with us, or you can go ahead and log on to our YouTube channel and you can have a check. We will have a couple of more videos coming in all the time. And my name is Pradeep, and I present I present lots of trainings like this, and I'm cooperated with a company called Sharpner Technology Services. Stay tuned. You can go ahead and get more ideas about many technologies like Vmware and vSphere and NSX. They have many BUs, and we have few videos which are coming up for AWS and for Azure, and we are coming up with Google Cloud and what is cloud in general, and we have about Linux classes, networking, and OpenStack. Many more are coming up. Okay, so just get in touch with us if you need to go ahead and get more ideas about it. We do provide online trainings with an extraordinary level. Just get in touch with us to get more information about it. And here you come as well, or you can go and write to us at info@sharpnertechnologies.com as well. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a good day ahead.